We are here. It is afternoon number 1 in Wyoming, and we're just trying to work out all the kinks. We had to find everything in the vehicles, somehow get it in bags, and then we had to put trash bags on our feet across the creek down below us. And now we've got another 700 feet of elevation or so to gain in a mile-ish. And then we're gonna do some glassing for the evening, maybe let out a few bugles as the sun's going down and see if we can find something. We'll check back in. So the sun's going down. We've got a little drainage right here, some dark timber. So I'm just going to step up to the edge of that, call down in there, maybe we'll get a response. So, I can't even tell you how far away this is. Actually, I can, but we just spotted 2 elk, not even in the same galaxy as we're in. But it's a place that I've got some waypoints. I'm thinking that that's about there. So we are probably 5.8 miles from where I spotted these elk. It's an area I think we're gonna go maybe try to find a campsite at tonight and check out in the morning.
Not really. What'd you pick?
The sun is just starting to peek up above the clouds, starting to get a little gray in the sky. It's probably 28 degrees or so. If you can see here, there's a frost on the vehicle, and we think we heard some bugling a long ways away. We're not going that direction. There's no telling where that could have been really, but could have been hunters. But we're gonna start heading uphill, and hopefully we can, at the very least, learn something about what they're doing around here.
Oh yeah, she's so pretty. You can't really see it on camera.
Oh, I'm sure. She scared the crap out of me. Busted through that opening. She was just a gentleman. They call that stotting. So the game plan today is just to try to cover a lot of ground. vicinity of where we saw some elk last night from 5-6 miles away. So we're gonna look for fresh sign, decide if we want to spend any more time here, in the coming days.
Yeah, so this morning, Kyle dragged me out of my warm sleeping bag to get out into the icy cold, to throw our britches on and start hiking up and up and up and some more up, just to try to get to that meadow where he believes he saw 2 elk yesterday. However, he has bugled here and he has cow called there, and nothing's talking back to us. So after a very boring morning, we're gonna take a break here at like 8:15 and make some daggum coffee because Lord knows I need it. After coffee and a snack, Guy wants to do a little more e-scouting on the OnX app, and I want to do a little napping.
So, today's elk hunt was a bust, but on the way back to the truck, we're able to pick up 2 ruffed grouse, which is pretty awesome. That is the most fun I have had in a while. You can see this really thick stuff here. They were in here and we were running them all different directions, and it was a lot like rabbits, except one flew away. I've never seen a rabbit do that yet. All right, we'll get these cleaned up.
As Georgia people, this was our very first ever wild grouse hunt, and it was super cool, especially with the bow aspect of it. But unfortunately, it was the most fun we had all day due to the lack of elk sign and any response. So we're gonna pack it in and move camp and try somewhere new in the morning. So we moved camp yesterday to try out a new spot. This morning we got up at 5:30, hoping that we would be the first this trailhead. Unfortunately, we weren't. But fortunately, the guy who was super nice. His name is Troy, and he's invited us to join him today. So we're gonna see what happens.
So unfortunately, we didn't hear any bugles on our way in with Troy, but we stopped on a ridge line and made some coffee. Had a couple of mule deer come through the saddle right there by us, and they were very curious as to what we were and why we were there. After that, we dropped off of that ridge and started making our way through the north-facing timber, which just in general is usually way cooler, way more comfortable to elk, just because the sun doesn't shine on those faces as much. On our way through the timber, we did a few call-in scenarios just to see if we could pull something, up to us. That didn't amount to anything, so we kept moving, and we eventually came across a wallow, and the ground was just absolutely churned up. If you don't know what a wallow is, it's essentially a place where bulls during the rut will come and roll around, and they'll pee in the mud, and they end up just coating themselves with just stinky, nasty mud, and it kind of becomes their calling card. for cows in the area to to come in and see how big and strong they are. So we decided, because it looked so active and just so promising, that we would stay there for a few hours and do some more calling, see if we could pull something in to see what was going on. So after about 4 or so hours of sitting in the wallow and calling and waiting and calling some more, unfortunately nothing came in. Didn't hear any bugles, didn't hear anything close by, so we decided to call our way back to the truck and draw up a game plan for getting to a new area in the unit the next day. But overall, it was definitely not a waste, because Troy, having so much more time than us in the elk woods, was just kind of a fountain of knowledge. Learning how to better navigate the mountains, learning what it's going to take to pull in an elk, those last 30 or 40 yards with the bow is kind of the most important part, right? And hearing his stories and his advice on how to do that, it's given us more confidence going into the rest of the archery hunt. But we headed back to camp, got everything kind of loaded up to get mobile again in the morning, and that's kind of the plan, is to keep moving.
This morning we were a little lazy and slept in till maybe 6 or 6:30. And when we got up to make breakfast, there were a couple of moose across the creek, a cow and a young bull. And we got to enjoy watching them while we had our biscuits and gravy and coffee. Alright, so after we had breakfast with the moose, we moved camp about 2 hours away. And unfortunately, this new area looks like it's just as full of other hunters, but we think we have figured out a spot that's going to be less crowded. The blowdown and the timber is just terrible. It's going to be really nasty to get through, but that's alright. We're going to go ahead and lay down a track this afternoon, just so we kind of have a good idea of how to best get through it in the morning when we have Skip and Hannah with us.
Get as close to that timber as we can, and we'll just let it get dark, and then we'll bugle.
Okay. We're a little disheartened by the fact that we're not seeing a ton of fresh elk sign here, but we're gonna give it another shot in the morning with Skip and Hannah. Unfortunately, I didn't get to take a ton of video the first morning that Skip and Hannah joined us. It just wasn't an exciting morning. There wasn't a ton of fresh sign, obviously, and no elk talking, because same old, same old. So we hiked out and had lunch at camp, and then we packed it up. We all decided to just head back the 2 hours to where Kyle and I had seen the freshest sign. So after we drove the 2 hours back, Skip and Hannah realized that they were having some tire issues with their camper, and that was a bit of a bummer. So we decided to just forego elk hunting for the evening and give our grouse hunting spot another go. Unfortunately, the grouse had left the area, but we had fun anyways.
We wake up. Our plan was to gain about 800, 900 feet of elevation in about 2 miles. So that would have been a probably hour and a half to 2 hour hike. So we were up at just a little bit after 4 a.m. and wanted to be hiking by 5. So we get to the trailhead. We're the only vehicles there, so we were in my vehicle, and skipping hen or in his just because of all the stuff we have. And lo and behold, there are bulls bugling in multiple directions. So we start up the trail because there was a bull that direction, but we ended up getting pulled off that trail in a different way by a very responsive bull, and which we quickly realized was a couple of bulls. And so we chased them. They were still bugling like 8:40, and then they got quiet, and then they were bugling again at 10 a.m. And so we closed the distance on them. We got close to where, we were pretty sure they were bedded. Got up above them. The thermals were coming up by then, so the wind wasn't going to be an issue, or so we thought. The wind kind of got weird, as it always does, but we just couldn't get a response out of them. So we backed out, came to camp, hung out a little bit. Well, we get to the just general area, really, well, I say general area. We were, probably a half mile from where we thought those bulls were bedded, and they're already bugling. And I mean, it's 2 hours, a little over 2 hours before the sun goes down. And so Skip and Hannah posted up on a point in a meadow, and actually right when we got there, saw a cow in the meadow, and it saw them as well as they were getting situated. But they ended up seeing a porcupine, a mule deer buck, and they were able to hear the bugles that Caroline and I went after. So we kind of did everything right, in my opinion. We were very, very passive, very safe while the wind was, squirrely. And then as soon as the wind got right, as the sun got off that face of the mountain, we were aggressive. We closed the distance. There was a herd bull that had cows. We ended up hearing the cows, and he was in a screaming match with a satellite bull. So essentially he was telling that satellite bull constantly, get away, these are my cows, get away. And the satellite bull would bugle back, trying to impress the ladies. And so we stalked in. I ended up getting a visual on the satellite bull. Unfortunately, it was through some pine trees, and he kind of knew we were there. He turned broadside and looked because he had heard our footsteps, but we stayed still, didn't move, and he just kind of went back to casually moving and went into a road in the timber. And so when he did, we saw everything. We saw all his antlers, his entire body, how tall he was. And so I moved forward and let out a call, got on the corner, and I was waiting for him to just come right back. It's like, oh gosh, there's somebody behind me. And if he stepped out, it was going to be a 5-yard, 10-yard shot at most. And he didn't turn back. He didn't come back into the meadow. I assumed he might be standing around the corner waiting, but we gave it a little bit and looked around the corner. He wasn't there. Never heard a branch break. Have no idea where he went. He just disappeared, and the bugle stopped there. But being within 55, 60 yards of a bull in a general unit, lots of hunting pressure, was pretty amazing. And then so we get up this morning, so last night we get in camp, the sun's down, we're cooking dinner, and bulls are bugling everywhere, at least in 3 different directions. We wake up this morning, bulls are bugling, and so we went after a bull this morning. We were paralleling him for a long time. He was bugling pretty good. About every 10 minutes he would let one go, and then all of a sudden coyotes, just like within 150 yards of us, probably a group of coyotes just start going crazy, and not another sound out of the bull. So it's hot. It's the afternoon hunt. My pants are rolled up because it is so ridiculously hot and dry. I think the high is only 74, but here it just feels so much hotter. But we're gonna go back to kind of to that face of the mountain. Thankfully, it's a pretty gradual slope. They don't seem to really be enjoying it for the past 2 days. And we're gonna put ourselves in a position to hopefully be in a place where we can maybe make the same stalking play if that bull is fired up again this afternoon. And Skip and Hannah up there just down the road from us, they've got a spot identified as a pretty good pinch point to just ambush hunt, and until something hopefully gives them a reason to change their plans. Ideally that would be a screaming bull, if not multiple. So fingers crossed. The weather's definitely not doing us any favors being this hot, but we're going to make the most of it, and we'll see what happens.
So yesterday evening was clearly a bust, seeing as I don't have any videos of us packing an elk out. It wasn't even worth videoing, honestly, because it was so quiet yesterday evening. But this morning, the 4 of us got up very early to start hiking up these high ridges that Kyle and I had originally done with Troy the other day. And Skip and Hannah are going to sit a wallow close to a meadow. And Kyle and I are going to sit the wallow where we sat with Troy. It's extremely boring, and I don't recommend it. So we've officially sat this wallow for another 4 to 5 to foreverty hours, and again we saw nothing and we heard nothing. This was a wonderful way to spend our 2-year wedding anniversary. No, really though, the scenery made it worth it. On our very last morning of archery season, we went back to where we first saw that bull and heard the bugling. We're not seeing or hearing much this morning, except some really weird sounds and large footsteps, which I believe is a bull moose. But Kyle's gonna bugle and cow call at it anyways, because a boy can dream.
Well, after about a week, really about a full week of bow hunting, we are getting ready to pack up. We're going to be headed back home. The rifle season opens up in about 2 weeks, so we'll plan to be back hopefully a couple of days before that opens so we can get some scouting in. I say scouting, really, this has kind of been a big scouting trip with the bow so far. But we've got about 37.5 miles of hiking in. Since we've been here, we've been able to see multiple parts of the unit. And hopefully, you know, this has been a lot of the puzzle pieces, right, that we're going to be able to put together for the rifle season. We don't expect the weather to be any cooler. We don't expect there to be less hunting pressure. If anything, we're pretty sure there's going to be a lot more. But we're hopeful. You know, it's all about finding out where they're not. And although the cards are kind of going to be reshuffled when the rifle season opens just because the rut will have wound down a good bit, at the same time, the elk have not going to, you know, they won't have been disturbed for about 2 weeks. So we wouldn't be surprised to show up and they're, you know, bugling more, you know, maybe even more than this week. But it's going to be a long drive home and a lot more miles to go, but we're hopeful. And we aren't going to throw in the towel yet.
15, 16, 17, 18. So it looks like there may be about 20 elk in that opening now. And that is great news. So just anywhere you could think to hunt, somebody was there. And it's hot, and the moon is full, and it's just a super good time so far.
This is what our current situation is. And it's only getting worse.